that like punk rock music, and I can dial that specifically in, and for $50, maybe sell 5 CDs, and I've now magically made my money back. And I've even had lawyers tell me that they really, they can't afford to do the Projo anymore, or they can't afford to do the Warwick Beacon. It's just the amount of referrals, the amount of actual paying clients that come in that they can bill. It's better just to go out with business cards, or I don't know, chase ambulances or whatever they're doing these days.
Well, plus, how do you? What use is it to have a lawyer advertise in a newspaper? It's not the sort of thing that people are browsing for,
right?
Where the people see a little ad and go, "Hey, yeah, I could use a lawyer today."
Whereas Google AdWords, if they're doing a Google search on personal injury,
right.
Hypothetically, of course, in Rhode Island,
right?
What's the state motto? Better living through workman's comp. It's just so much more focused. So, if you look at the big advertisers in the Urinal right now, you're talking about government ads. Essentially government required government filings.
Even the smaller papers, those eviction notices and divorce decrees. That really keeps those guys going.
Right. That's what pays the bills. You've still got the desire by the seasoned citizens of Rhode Island to post obituaries, regardless of how expensive they are.
Wasn't there a big uproar not too long ago about the price of obituaries?
Yeah, it's through the roof.
That's depressing. It's so depressing.
Well, but it's because they're losing advertisers in other sectors, because advertisers are, they're squeaking about the price, and they're thinking very hard. As a lawyer, for example, does it make sense for me to advertise here? And they're now realizing that it doesn't.
Do they charge by the pixel for the picture? Because I just have this gigantic head, and I'm thinking that I wouldn't even be able to afford my picture, and Tony died.
Well, no, the news will be covering yours. When they wheel in the big pink Cadillac, and but again, looking at their advertising base, though, all that's left are, first of all, the car dealers, a fraction of what they used to do, because all that's gone online. Right now, it's really reduced to PPAC, the casinos. And in fact, one of the Urinal's least principal moments was their deathbed conversion to casino gambling support, because in part, who the hell else is advertising in the state?
A lot of people converted when the PR company came out and said, we have $1 million to spend to make sure that this bill passes, and all of a sudden that hallelujah moment happened.
Yeah, and suddenly there are editorials about how swell it would be to have a casino.
Right. So, but really, ultimately, that's all that's left. So,
it's all
business model's failing.
It's all going to be mass market ads, because they're not really able to target or reach people with other interests.
Right.
So it's least common denominator things, like Dunkin' Donuts. Nothing against Dunkin' Donuts, but that's the kind of ad they're going to get, because Dunkin' Donuts knows that they can reach people that way.
I never understood why the Block Island Ferry advertises, because if you want to go to Block Island,
that's the only way to go.
You have one choice.
I actually hope the Block Island Ferry shook down the town, because basically they're promoting tourism.
Right.
Like, they're basically saying you can go to Block Island.
And by the way, P.O., you got some hate mail, and to that point, and to also in Cowansett, there's another group that wants to open up a second Block Island Ferry from the port of Cowansett. A lot less traffic. They just rebuilt the whole area. It just seems like a pretty good idea. They are slicing this guy up down there, and that's kind of the same thing that you saw as far as when we talked about wind energy, right?
Right. The politics of personal destruction are alive and well here. Hillary may have been wrong nationally, but they're alive well here in Rhode Island.
Is it a not in my backyard thing?
Oh, I truly believe so. I run hot and cold on wind power. It's
and conveniently enough, you can.
Yeah, I can. Ultimately, it's not scaled to the size yet where it's cost effective. At the same time, clearly there's a NIMBYism, along the more cultured parts of Rhode Island. Lovey, those bloody turbines are out there again.
I actually like them. If I win Powerball, I'll be more than happy to let my oceanfront property be host for some wind turbines.
There's our remote. We could broadcast live from a wind turbine.
Well, I'm a highly principled individual. I firmly believe in raising taxes that I don't have to pay. And based on the response...
And setting up windmills where you don't have to look at them.
Right. Based on the response I got from one person after having the sheer gall, the temerity, the noive to request an interview, hey... bring them on, baby.
I could possibly maybe see if you're living right next to the windmill and you're hearing whoosh, whoosh,
and the screams of birds as they're sliced and diced.
I live fairly close to an Amtrak train, and I live kind of in a little happening area, right? And by happening, I mean people are getting drunk, and when they get out, they're hooting and hollering and screaming. And I thought when I moved there, this is just going to be awful. And probably 2 weeks into it, you just sleep through. I mean, unless someone's out there screaming bloody murder,
right.
You just sleep through it.
I'm on 3rd Avenue one night in New York City, and I see a policeman looking up to a window, and it's over a restaurant bar, and all I hear the policeman say is, "Lady, you live over a bar." That's all you need to know. So turbines, windmills, as far as I'm concerned, bring them on.
Yeah, I think we need to do the same thing we do anytime we put any potential nuisance up, in that if it's too close to someone's house and it makes a lot of noise, we compensate them the same way we do with any other kind of eminent domain thing.
Well, like we were doing at the airport. We're building, as airport traffic continues to decline at a precipitous rate, and we continue to build and buy people out of their homes so we can build more runways that won't be used. That seems to be the task we're taking.
We have the interlink.
Yeah, okay.
That will eventually pay off, I think.
I'm so convinced that there's little economy to be had here at all in the next 5 to 10 years. We're going to see a circling of the drain that's going to be unparalleled here in the United States, that I don't think anyone is going to be left.
But it's not only about that, though. I mean, you mean in the United States there's going to be no one left?
No, in Rhode Island.
Okay.
I just see people making a lot of money building things, under the premise of build it and pray like hell to the gods that someone will come. And and the whole Wickford interlink thing is probably one of the leading examples.
Sitting empty, collecting. I'm planning a trip to Boston in a few weeks, and it did finally click into my head that I could hop on a train fairly close to my house and get on that thing and go to Boston.
Well, that's the joke about it. The MTA, I'm convinced, hornswoggled the clowns at RIDOT into thinking that this would bring people to Rhode Island, when in fact it made it easier for people to go to Boston.
Yeah.
And I'll use an example. They were crowing about how it would bring people to TF Green. Just so everyone knows, the Silver Line is a bus that runs from South Station in Massachusetts directly to Logan. Last time I checked, it was actually free. I don't know if that was a promotion or not. But anyone in South County, if you want to fly out of Logan, you can do so on essentially one just about uninterrupted train ride. Logan is now cheaper, more flights, more convenient, better, much more efficient security on every single level. Logan's a better airport to fly out of. And that was my PSA for the Rhode Island Transport.
Except that I really enjoy being able to drive 15 minutes to the airport and just...
Yeah, and that's the Rhode Island mentality of people. I'm not fighting Boston traffic.
But I'm here to do whatever I can to take business away from the government of Rhode Island.
And I think about myself personally.
But you're also taking it away from the businesses of Rhode Island at the same time.
There will be collateral damage.
Yeah, so you need to think about
what
that.
Businesses in Rhode Island?
we will be hosting business owners in Rhode Island, so you'll get a sense for what businesses there are.
We are, and thank you for that shameless plug.
It's a shameless plug. I'm also giving you a warning. You can't keep undermining the economy of Rhode Island and expect people to be happy to come talk to you.
Yeah, but they know. I mean, they're living it.
Yeah,
they're living the dream. We will be starting next week. We're going to have a weekly segment where we're going to have business owners in who are going to discuss both the drama and the love for having a business here in Rhode Island, and really confront some of the issues, not just from an urban legend perspective, but really tell us what their pain is, where their joy is, and how they manage to be successful in a place that, quite bluntly, so many others have failed and continue to fail.
It's great to see some people that do have that true hardcore entrepreneurial spirit where they're going to do it no matter how many roadblocks you throw up in front of them. And unfortunately, those are the people that are left because everybody else is bailed out.
Well, they're going to be successful despite the concentrated efforts of the government of the state of Rhode Island.
And those are the people, too, that kind of just do things and then ask for forgiveness later as far as maybe some regulations go, or I hope I didn't just set myself up to get audited. However, They just do it.
And you have to, people who own businesses have to have very strong egos. And when I say that,
And a strong stomach.
right, they have to be, and I mean that in a positive way. That's not a pejorative term, the ego. It's only the liberal elite who foisted that upon us, that an ego is a bad thing. but ultimately,
there's a healthy ego and there's an unhealthy ego.
right, they have to be convinced they can do something that everyone else fails at when you start a successful business.
There's a slice of people who think that being successful in any way is a bad thing. Those are the same people that kind of tell you that the ego is a bad thing.
Well, as a nation, we used to look to people who were successful and try to emulate that success. As when I was growing up, my father never took cheap shots at the quote-unquote wealthy, the elite. Learn from them, see what they're doing, and if you want to go with that, go with that. Certainly don't disparage people who built successful businesses. Yet here, what's the cliche? The evil rich. Who are not doing their share. Okay,
Well, bear in mind that when your father was talking about these businesses, there was a different balance of power.
And people want to know if it's old money or if it's new money.
I mean, we don't really have much time to get into this now. It's something we can talk about.
Do a whole
probably
show
more.
on it.
Yeah, I'm sure we could. But all of our politicians have been bought and paid for by big businesses.
True.
So laws have been adjusted, shifted, rewritten a whole cloth to benefit them.
That's unfair. The millions of dollars that Senator Jack Reed received from the very banks that he was allegedly there to regulate had no impact on his decision-making capacity whatsoever.
The fact that we mysteriously have prosecuted hardly any bankers at all.
He is not a crook.
Yeah. None of them are crooks. None of them are crooks. I mean, the powers that be, not the powers that be, the media that be were astonished that one high-profile guy in a recent financial fraud case actually was convicted.
Right.
Because they felt...
How dare you?
They were, in some cases, pleasantly surprised because they felt the prosecutors were doing such a weak job of making their case that they thought, do they even care? Are the feds even trying?
Hey, real quick before we wrap things up, and maybe you care, maybe you don't care, but I was wondering what you guys thought on the fact that Twitter is filing an IPO. They're going to go public. And this is from a guy who, let me put this eloquently, lost his butthole in Facebook stock and then regained a little bit of my butthole in Facebook stock. So I don't know how to feel on it.
I don't understand why people jump on an IPO.
I normally don't. However, I'm thinking of myself personally, and I'm thinking of the fact that Facebook could be the equivalent of buying AT&T when telephones started. And from my own personal experience, I'm using Facebook all the time. We're booking stuff for this show on Facebook.
Oh, sure. I'm not
I never
suggesting
use the phone, and everybody's communicating.
Oh, true. I'm using it now instead of email a lot of the time because I can talk to 3 people at once, and I can keep conversations in these separate little places, which I really love.
The amount of band things I've booked on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, probably 95% of the shows I've played in the past year have been booked on Facebook.
I'm not suggesting Facebook isn't a valuable stock in some way. I'm questioning why people jump on an IPO as if there's never going to be an opportunity to buy the stock again. What happens is people flood the market, the price gets jacked way up on day one, and then eventually some of the people who managed to buy it in the first hour when the price wasn't jacked up go, holy crow, I've already made money in one day, and they sell it, and then the price plummets.
It really leveled out,
if you're the person who bought it too many hours in on the first day when the price jumped up, you got screwed.
You're jumping out a window.
You're better off waiting. Yeah, you're better off waiting for the first several days of fluctuation to wear off and see where it levels off.
Hey, we got to wrap things up. Thank you guys again. Another great show. I feel we hit it out of the baseball field this evening. CoalitionRadio.us, Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio. On Twitter, Coalition_Radio. For Christine, for P.O. Taxpayer, my name is Tony Jones. Join us next time. It's going to be a hoot. Again, you have been tuned in to The Coalition.